Business backlash hits Trump's DACA decision. The Trump administration's decision to halt a program for young people illegally brought to the United States as children was met with a furious backlash from the business community on Tuesday, with industry leaders quickly firing back. Business leaders, corporations and universities lined up to condemn Trump's phased-out termination of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA program, an Obama-era administrative program for people who were brought to the United States illegally as children. The decision to end DACA is not just wrong, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg wrote in a post. It is particularly cruel to offer young people the American dream, encourage them to come out of the shadows and trust our government, and then punish them for it. The Hill's Ali Breland and Megan Wilson have more. http://bit.ly2x95nw4. Moody's will downgrade U.S. credit rating if Treasury misses interest payments. A top international credit agency said Tuesday it would consider the United States government in default of its debt obligations if it misses interest payments. Moody's Investor Service said it won't downgrade the country's AAA credit rating if the government misses a September 30 deadline to raise the debt ceiling set by Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin. Stephen Turner Mnuchin. Pessimism abounds on Trump tax reform effort. House to vote on Harvey aid package Wednesday. RSC Chairman Harvey aid could be jeopardized if linked with debt ceiling more, but would do so if the Treasury Department misses interest payments due October 15 and 31. Moody's view is that the debt ceiling will ultimately be raised and that the U.S. will continue to meet its debt service obligations on time and in full, the agency said in a statement on Tuesday, adding that it expects Treasury to prioritize interest payments. In the event, however unlikely, that the U.S. were to miss an interest payment, Moody's would consider it a default, the agency said. Congress has less than a month to raise the legal limit on how much debt the federal government can hold. The Treasury Department has used so-called extraordinary measures to prevent the U.S. from defaulting on its nearly $20 trillion debt. I'll tell you what might happen if they don't. http://bit.ly2x8hrhl. Congressional leaders push back on withdrawal from U.S. Korea trade deal. A bipartisan group of congressional leaders on Tuesday urged the Trump administration not to withdraw from a U.S.-South Korea trade agreement, emphasizing the importance of the alliance amid escalating tensions with North Korea. North Korea's latest nuclear test underscores yet again the vital importance of the strong alliance between the United States and South Korea. The U.S.-South Korea Agreement Chorus, negotiated under two presidents and approved by Congress, is a central element of that alliance, the lawmakers wrote in a statement. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Braddock. Pessimism abounds on Trump tax reform effort. Stop railing against American companies for dodging taxes. Tax reform advocates hope GOP can avoid September catastrophes. More. Texas and Ranking Member Richard Neal Demas, as well as Senate Finance Committee Chairman Orrin Hatch. Grant Hodge. The memo. Trump faces critical fall. DACA debate turns toward Congress as Trump readies decision. Former Commerce Secretary warns canceling DACA would blemish U.S. Moruda and Ranking Member Ron Wyden. Ron Lee Wyden, energy official who claimed online comments were a result of hacking, resigns. Report. Trump to slash Obamacare outreach funding. Dem Senator requests info on Trump nominee hacking claims. More. All top members of committees that oversee reciprocal trade agreements signed the statement. The lawmakers underscored that South Korea is a vital U.S. trading partner, urging for amendments to be made to the current chorus trade agreement rather than taking a more drastic approach by pulling out entirely. The Hill's Olivia Beavers reports. http://bit.ly2x8l6l. Happy Monday and welcome back to Overnight Finance. I'm Sylvan Lane, and here's your nightly guide to everything affecting your bills, bank account and bottom line. See something I missed? Let me know at slane@thehill.com or tweet me at sylvanlane. And if you like your newsletter, you can subscribe to it here. http://bit.ly1nxxw2n.on. Tap tomorrow. House Education and the Workforce Committee hearing entitled The Sharing Economy: Creating Opportunities for Innovation and Flexibility, 10 a.m. http://bit.ly2gpgyms. House Small Business Committee hearing entitled Expediting Economic Growth: How Streamlining Federal Permitting Can Cut Red Tape for Small Businesses, 11 a.m. http bit.ly2gpizzle. House Financial Services Subcommittee on Terrorism and Illicit Finance hearing entitled Low Cost, High Impact Combating the Financing of Lone Wolf and Small-Scale Terrorist Attacks, 2 p.m. http bit.ly2gpjo. President Trump delivers a speech on tax reform efforts in North Dakota. Preview. Lawmakers brace for high-stakes September. Congress returns to Washington on Tuesday with critical work to complete by the end of the month if they hope to avert a government shutdown and global financial crisis. Lawmakers have until September 30 to fund the government beyond this month and raise the legal limit on how much debt the federal government can hold. Both deadlines have risky political implications, and GOP leaders have been publicly divided about the path forward. Congress will also try to tackle tax reform, flood insurance, Harvey aid, and now immigration in the contentious month ahead. Here's a full look at what you can expect. Microsoft President: Congress should protect DACA recipients before turning to tax reform. Microsoft President and Chief Legal Officer Brad Smith said Tuesday that Congress should prioritize passing legislation to protect young immigrants who have benefited from the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA program over tax reform legislation. Smith's statement follows the Trump administration's announcement that it is rescinding DACA, which has allowed about 800,000 people who came to the U.S. illegally as children to get work permits and deferral from deportation. The administration has given Congress 6 months to replace DACA with new legislation, Smith said. We believe this means that Congress now needs to reprioritize the fall legislative calendar and move quickly with new legislation to protect these 800,000 dreamers. This means that Congress should adopt legislation on DACA before it tries to adopt a tax reform bill. This is the only way, given the number of legislative days Congress has scheduled over the next 6 months, we realistically can expect Congress to complete DACA legislation in time, he added. http bit.ly2x8gic. FEMA's Harvey funding down to $541 million. The Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA has just $541 million left for disaster management related to Hurricane Harvey, according to a FEMA spokesperson on Tuesday. The agency also has an additional $472 million devoted to wildfire relief related to the blazes in Southern California and to prepare for Hurricane Irma. Irma was upgraded to a Category 5 storm and is headed toward Puerto Rico. It may also sweep up toward Florida and Georgia. The combined $1.013 billion in the Disaster Relief Fund is unlikely to be enough for the extreme challenges created by Harvey and the other disasters. Texas Gov. Greg Abnauer has warned that the bill for cleaning up and repairing storm damage from Harvey alone could cost as much as $180 billion. The Hills Nivelis has more. http bit.ly2x8ec9. DeVos ends agreement to work on student loan fraud. The Education Department on Friday announced it will stop working with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau (CFPB) to police student loan fraud. The department, now led by Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. Elizabeth Betsy D. DeVos. Dems prep for major fight over Trump USDA science pick. Letting mercenaries fight our wars undercuts the Constitution. Trump administration to modify Conference for Black Colleges. More, canceled agreements with the CFPB from 2011 and 2013 that established the working relationship, arguing the agency violated its terms by overstepping its boundaries. Education Department officials said the CFPB violated the agreements by not directing complaints about Title IV student loans to the department within 10 days. Instead, the Bureau addressed the cases. The education officials said the department takes exception to the CFPB unilaterally expanding its oversight role to include the department's contracted federal loan servicers, and called it characteristic of an overreaching and unaccountable agency. I explain here. http bit.ly2x8r7sv. New data details how Americans are spending their money. The American economy is slowly recovering from the worst recession in nearly a century, but the long hangover from the downturn means households are still spending less than pre-recession highs, according to new government data. The Bureau of Labor Statistics annual report on consumer expenditures shows the average American household spent $57,311 in 2016, higher than in any year previously recorded. It is the second year in a row in which household spending has increased, after a decade of stagnation or decline. But adjusted for inflation, households are still spending less today than in 2006, when average expenditures reached $57,618 when adjusted for inflation. The largest single line item on which Americans spend their money is housing, which accounts for nearly a third of total spending. Those who own their own homes spend more than those who rent, but renters spend more on actual rent payments than owners spend on mortgage interest. The Hill's Reed Wilson breaks it down. http://bit.ly2x8i3gx. Group launches multi-million-dollar campaign for small business tax cuts. A business group on Tuesday rolled out a multi-million-dollar campaign to pass tax cuts by Thanksgiving as Trump administration officials and leading GOP lawmakers have said they want to pursue broader tax reform. The Job Creators Network, a coalition that includes former leaders of Home Depot, Best Buy and BB&T Bank, argues that tax cuts for small businesses would lead to job creation and wage growth. The group is pushing for a tax cut bill to pass this fall that is retroactive to the start of 2017. The group, which counts heavy-hitter Trump backers including former Speaker Newt Gingrich (RGA) among its allies, said its campaign will include a bus tour that will make stops in Washington, D.C., and elsewhere in the country and advertising on television, radio, print and digital platforms. The group also launched a website called taxcutsnow.com to highlight the campaign and to get people to sign a petition. http://bit.ly2x8joule. While you were away this weekend, rising gas prices after Harvey threatened Trump economy, by Devin Henry. Google faces blowback after think tank fires critic by Ali Berland. Tax reform advocates hope GOP can avoid September catastrophes, by Naomi Yagoda. Trump nominates Columbia law professor, former Treasury aide to Sec. by Sylvan Lane. A good reads from around the web. Reuters. Cordray tests Ohio's election waters amid concerns about consumer agencies' future. Wall Street Journal. Stocks tumble on fresh threat from North Korea. NBC. Chipotle's queso finally gets a nationwide release date. Write us with tips, suggestions and news. Slain at thehill.com, Fanitum at thehill.com, Najagoda at thehill.com and Nellis at thehill.com. Follow us on Twitter at Sylvan Lane, at Vic of the Hill, at Najagoda and at Nivalis.